One, you're trying to get your life back to your identity. You and I have talked about this analogy before, so I'll be quick with it. But your identity, your personal belief in yourself, your identity is like the thoughts, beliefs, and concepts you hold to be most true about you. It's a thermostat setting on your life. We talked about this before. I'll give you two things. So like this studio we're in, I don't know, 72 degrees in here right now, something like that. The external conditions, it's a cold, rainy day here in LA. The external conditions, it's 50 degrees outside. That does not affect the internal thermostat in this room. It is 72 degrees. If it was 90 degrees outside, the air conditioners will come on and cool this room back to 72 degrees. You procrastinate because your results are about to exceed your identity and you're turning the air conditioner on. So if right now you're getting 72 degrees of, you believe in yourself at 72 degrees of wealth or abundance or productivity, and you've started to heat it up to 85, 90, 100 degrees, you subconsciously turn the air conditioner on of your life to cool it back down to what you really believe you're worthy of and you deserve. So the deep work is you got to raise that identity of what you believe you're worth to 85, 90, 100 degrees. How do you do that? Typically proximity to people who live at that thermostat setting. They will heat you up to theirs. So that's a huge one. Why you'll see somebody who, for example, their love thermostat is 72 degrees, and you go on, you double date, and they're with their dream person. You're like, oh my gosh, they're in love. It's blissful. They're at 90, 100 degrees of love in their life. And a year later, you run into them and you're like, so how is Steve or how's Janice? Oh, it didn't work out. What happened was they turned the air conditioner on and cooled it back to what they believe they deserve oftentimes. Or wealth. We've all had these friends that they're 72 degrees of wealth and all of a sudden, man, their business is kicking 85, 90, 100. And what happens is it seems coincidental. Oh, supply chain. Oh, this or that. A customer broke off. A car broke down. I had to loan money to a friend. No. Those were circumstances. What really happened was you turned the air conditioners on and you cooled your life back financially to believe what you believe you're worth. Same in your body. Someone's 72 degrees of fitness. They're getting in shape. They've lost the 10 pounds. They look great. And you see them in a year and they've come all the way back and gained it back. And you're like, what happened? They turned the air conditioner on of their life and got back to what they believe they're worth. You got to change that thermostat setting. And it's typically like in my faith life. If I was a 72 degrees in my faith, I started to surround myself with some men in my faith life who, man, they live in their faith at 95 and 100. They heated me up by proximity. Now my thermostat setting's different. So that's a biggie. The second one with procrastination is you've developed a false belief system in yourself of what you need to know to take action. And so successful people are willing to step into the unknown and the unprepared more than people who are unsuccessful. Now, I'm not saying I don't like to research, like, you're super prepared for today, so am I. But there are just situations in my life of what I think I need to know is much lower than most people to step into the space and perform. So procrastination is really saying, I got to know a little more. I got to prepare a little bit more. I got to get a little bit more ready, a little bit more ready, a little bit more ready. And you keep raising the readiness quota to a point where you never take action. And so you got to get to this point where you're like, I'm going to get into the room. I'm going to start to write that paper. I'm going to start the book. I'm going to get into that and I'll figure it out when I get there. And most people that are successful have this internal belief system that I don't need to know everything to take action. I just need to know enough to get in the room and I'll figure it out from there. And you've known this with all the successful people you've coached. That is something they possess in droves, is the ability to get into a space and step into a room and figure it out from there and not have to know everything. Those subtle subconscious air conditioners of our lives that cool down show up as coincidences. You know, but really they're not. They're by design because you're going to cool your life back to what you believe you deserve every day. When I work with athletes, they're like, what do you do with the pro athletes you work with? I'm mainly, you know this, even, what do most people want when someone's really successful, what are you working on? I go, usually their identity or their confidence. It's usually those two things. And their identity is the more important thing. Now, the other thing that happens for a lot of people with their identity is they'll attach their identity to the external, to their beauty, to their performance, to their career. And then when they lose that career or they lose that NFL football career they've got, then they don't know who they are without it. So this identity should be deeply rooted in who you are, not just what you do. You were born to do something great with your life. And when you were a little boy or a little girl, there was probably one person who made you feel that way. And you ought to give yourself the gift right now of who is that person? When you're a little girl or a little boy, they made you feel special. And there's probably only one, maybe two. Maybe it was your parents or your grandmother or grandfather, a coach, a religious figure. There's someone that was in your life and that you felt something about you because of the way they looked at you or spoke to you. And the amazing thing about that is they were right about you. They were right. For me, it was my papa, my dad's dad. I'm named after him. And he used to drive, he'd pick me up on Sundays. We'd go get donuts, Jay, to get for my cousins before church. And he'd drive me. I'd look up at Big Papa. Everyone, when you think about that person, you'll get emotional. For you, it's your mom, right? And he would look down at me and he'd go, Eddie, you're my favorite. He had all these great kids. You're my favorite. You're amazing. You're going to do something great with your life. You're the special. I go, I am, Big Papa. I am. And as a little boy, I just could feel his belief and his love. He was the only person who ever treated me that way. The rest of the world's never treated me that way, but Big Papa did. And the truth is, if you've had that person in your life, they were right about you.
Yes.
You're supposed to do something great with your life. And the reason it makes you emotional when you think about it now is because it's true. And truth vibrates at the highest frequency. So if you're listening to this or watching it, it's like, have that reminder, give yourself the gift. Maybe your Big Papa's gone now and not even here anymore. Honor them with who you become. Honor them with the life you build. Honor them with the choices you make. And take that belief. Imagine what God believes in you if that person believed in you. Take that belief and use it as fuel in your life to have some strength and confidence to shift other people's lives. And that, for me, that was Big Papa. It's a very dangerous way to live your life. When your identity is tied up in what you do rather than who you are, as you say, being, you're in a very dangerous place. Because if it's tied to those things and then they don't exist, you're completely lost without them. And it is a very shallow, and I don't mean like shallow in the sense that like, you know, shallow like a treasure. I mean, there's not a lot of depth to that identity that is long lasting when it's attached to what we do or what we look like or what we've achieved. You know, you'll say that you're right. I just met someone the other day who I knew immediately they lacked a strong identity because they immediately just resumed me. I did this, I did that, I achieved this, I was written here, I was that. And I actually stopped them and because I really liked them. And I won't say who she was, but I said, you know, I really like you. I like you. What impresses me is you. Who you are, your kindness. She's brilliant, by the way, this woman too. You're so brilliant, you're so kind. That's your identity. Your identity isn't your MBA. Your identity isn't your career. That's not your identity, but they've linked it to that. And it is a dangerous way to live your life, and it's not a deep way to live your life. A deep way to live your life where you can make impact in multiple areas is to root your identity in who you are, those intentions, the things that you believe to be true, your character, the way you conduct yourself, your value in life, your value, you're valuable. That's where identity is deeply rooted, not in the external. It's okay to be proud of your degree or your achievement or your career or your company. That's different. Being proud of something and having a sense of, you know, gratitude for what you've achieved, that's great. But when you link your identity to it, you're in a dangerous and shallow place. I have a pattern where I have a tendency, my emotional home, so to speak, as I go back to worry and fear. And I don't want to live that way. And so I've been working on unwiring that. That's the thing I've been working most on my healing journey is, you know, it's okay. Everything's going to be okay. I'm blessed. I'm favored. And it's undoing that wiring of worry and fear because we all have an emotional home. We all have 3 or 4 emotions that no matter what happens in a given week or month, we're going to get it. So if your emotional home is anger or worry or fear or frustration, no matter what the external conditions are, you're going to find a way to get your hit of it because it's your home. Conversely, if your emotional home is peace or equanimity or bliss or ecstasy, passion, focus, you'll find a way on a regular basis to get that emotion that you're familiar with because we're wired for it in our bodies and in our minds to be familiar with those emotions. So I just chose, what are the emotions I want? Do I want to live in worry and fear? Even though my external life is so great, I still have a tendency to worry and live fearfully. Or how do I want to live? I want to live in peace. I want some equanimity. I want bliss in my life. And so I've been rewiring that. I wasn't comfortable in my life. Maybe people can relate to this if they really take a look at themselves. I wasn't comfortable when things weren't a little bit chaotic because in life, we move towards really what we're most familiar with. We keep moving back to the familiar. That's why some people will date the completely same person in a different body. You and I have talked about with your amazing work, right? Because we move towards what we're familiar with. So I had a tendency in my life to create a lot of stress and chaos because I operated so well in it. It was a familiar state to be in, even though it didn't serve me. And so a lot of that work I've done in healing and digging deep in my life, it served me not just in healing, it's made me a better businessman. It's made me a better father, in often cases, a better friend, because I'm not constantly creating this stress and chaos around the people that I love the most. I've rewired. So everybody, when you're in that blissful state, if anyone's ever heard a song from a different time and it just triggers a state, it's not the words and the music, it's what was going on in that moment. You've anchored it in your body. So when I'm in a good state, a great state, I take advantage of it. I don't let it pass. I anchor it in my body, and I've sort of rewired myself so that when these ones that I don't want come along, I have a neurology I can change out of that move and do something physical. And it's simple, it's not complicated. It could be tugging your ear, feeling something on your shirt, something you do on your knees. So I've created like triggers in my life to put me back in that state. And over time, that's become my wiring now, not the old one. This is more familiar to me than the old one. Tendency now is to move towards the familiar state of bliss, of joy. I'd say 75, 80% of the time now, that's where I live. Whereas before, 95% of the time I lived the other way. Want all the things I want, but I don't have to have them right now. And it's the right now of life. I gotta be in a hurry. I gotta do it. I gotta do it. I gotta do it now, 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 now. There's a power of now. Some people lack the ability to operate in the now. But for me, I have built into my life rest. Last night, I slept 12 hours.
Wow.
And the reason is I've been getting to the point right now where I'm tinkering on the edge of too much now, too much now, too much now. And so I reflect back on my faith. I reflect back on, there's basic things I know you do, but I'm a big person on earthing and grounding. I love to get outdoors. I love to put my bare feet in the ground and let that recharge me. I'm real big on my recharge stuff now. And sometimes that means lots of sleep, believe it or not. I used to brag that I got 5 or 6 hours of sleep and I could operate on that. And I've learned over time, maybe there's a season for that that's great, but there's also a season where I listen to my body. You're the best at this, but I've gotten better at listening to my spirit and my body. And when my spirit is screaming at me, you need to rest, you need to recharge. I listen to my body, especially at 52 years old. My body will speak to me even more now than sometimes it ever has in my life. And I listen to it. And I've given myself the gift. I'm not afraid anymore. I'm not afraid anymore that I'm going to lose momentum. I can say no to something. I can rest, I can recharge, I can reflect, and it doesn't mean I'm going to lose momentum. I used to believe if I don't keep going, I'm going to lose the momentum I've got. And the truth is, that's an insecurity in me. That's my lack of identity screaming at me. And there's really 3 things, whether you believe in whatever your spiritual beliefs are. But if I was the adversary or the devil, what would I do to try to get you off track? What would I do? There's really 3 things. The first thing I would do is I'd get you to doubt. 3 Ds. I'll get you to doubt. Can I get Jay Shetty doubting himself, doubting that it matters, doubting his ability, doubting he can go to the next level? I'm going to get him to doubt. The second thing is I'll get him discouraged. I'll have a real critic. I'll have some hits. Have him have a miss or 2. Swing and a miss, right? If I can get him discouraged, then I got him. And the third thing, if I can't do that, or I'll do both, I'll get him a bit delusional. Delusion is believing something's worse than it is or better than it is. And you thought stack and you start to stack it. What about this? What about this? What about this? What about this? And I get you magnifying something to believe that it's a far bigger problem than it is, far more dramatic than it is, or far better than it is. And so those are the 3 Ds. And so it's doubt, discouragement, and delusion.
Wow.
And what I try to do is when I see them showing up, and they do, I go, I know exactly what this is. This is the negative coming to get me. This is trying to get me off course in my dreams and my vision and my contribution. And I am not going to let other people be cheated because I doubt and I'm discouraged and I'm delusional. And so I really focus when those things come up, and I identify them when they're there, and I root them out because I know where they're coming from, and they're not coming from good. They're not coming from God. They're not coming from high vibrational frequency. They're coming from the worst of the worst. And so I absolutely rid them out when they show up.